Yeah, exactly. I guess we should probably make tweets about it, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna do
I'll go
that.
make one. I actually have a couple followers you don't because of speedruns, I think, but I don't think any of them are actually that interested in fighting games, so
Oh, I gotcha.
we should probably make tweets about it, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna do
I'll
that.
go make one. Hey, I got a new follower. Who is it? Metal Face Xerd. I don't know who that is.
That's House Von Doom.
Cool
Yep.
person.
Yep. Super cool.
Nice.
Play Diablo with that guy. Knows
Really?
Yep. We met once a while ago.
Hmm.
It's been years since I've seen him.
I'm no good at like making these tweets, hyping the stream. When I was speedrunning, I would just like put the URL for my stream and it'd say Rockman 4 RTA and then nobody watched.
Right, yeah.
I'm my own worst hype man. Did you just get a retweet notification for me? Is that what that sound was?
Picks up my
So like
phone.
brr, brr. Yeah.
It picks up my phone.
Yeah.
Let's go to silent. Yep.
Mine's always on silent. I'm actually like impossible to get in touch with because of that.
I used to be that way. It was really hard for me to just start using my phone, like use the ringer and stuff. Of course, I worked night shift for years, so I'd be like, I'm sleeping, don't bother me, and I'll still do it.
Um, I'm not a. I forget the term. I'm not an editor on this channel, right? I can't change the name of the stream.
No, you're not.
Because right now it's still you expected video games, but it was me, Dio, which isn't super descriptive, you
It's
know?
not super descriptive. At the same time, it's not incorrect.
But all right, that's fine.
Yeah. All things considered, right now.
Uh-huh. That's a good point actually. We need to get a sick like stream layout for this thing, by the way.
Oh yeah, we do.
Even if nobody ever tunes in.
I might get Yohosi to do it from.
Oh yeah, yeah.
think
I know
she's
who that
from-
is, sort
yeah,
of.
I think she's from Atlanta,
Florida?
Florida.
Oh, I was off.
It's somewhere in.
It's the
United
same
States.
general region, isn't it?
Yeah. She did a sick layout for my for this channel, a normal one. You know,
Oh, cool.
this. Okay. Yeah. All right.
2 minutes to air. Not that we're already or not that we're not already on air, but
Yeah.
oh, dude, before we start, I need opinions from chat. I was right. She is from Florida.
I
Are we the
lose.
same volume right now? Me and AKA? Is one of us like significantly louder than the other?
I'm AKA.
I am 722. Hey, take off, man.
Take off. Can
It's
we
a
get-
shame that's copyrighted, so we can't. I'm not shelling out for the rights to like use 15 seconds of that for the intro.
No, I'm not either. Maybe Getty Lee'd be really cool about it though.
Okay, but Rick Moranis seems like he'd be cool about it actually.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the third guy?
Oh, I'm a little quieter, huh?
Oh, I see.
The third guy is Dave Thomas.
Hmm.
Like, yes,
Not-
not the Wendy's dude, but he
Okay.
has the same exact name.
Okay, and he sort of looks like him. Why don't you bring my volume down a little bit,
Okay.
and then we'll like check that, I guess, and then and then we can start, right?
Right. How's that? Does that work?
Oh yeah, I should say something so they have a basis for comparison, huh? Nah.
I need exact change.
Why does that sound so familiar?
It's Bebop Cola from CeeLo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that since it was like new.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was, and I kept getting hounded with that all weekend while I was in Seattle, and it
How
cracked
did
me
it
up.
start? How
I
did
don't,
it start?
I don't know. Oh, he goes, and I say to myself, I need exact change. It's so
Apparently,
stupid.
apparently, there's no real difference. I'm still louder than you.
Whatever. Okay.
I'm more of a loudmouth, so that does make sense actually.
Maybe I can just bellow instead then.
What if I whisper? Ooh, that sounded bad. Because I got a cold, right? So I got the artificially deep voice in the first place.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Let's not go there again.
Okay. Um, okay, well, it's 11:31 our time. So,
Yeah.
welcome everyone to The Backyard, the inaugural episode of Guilty Gear Xrd-centered podcast between myself, aka, and my good friend 722.
Nice to meet you. Not you. You know me. I mean the viewers.
Who are you?
Huh?
Who are you?
Where's I gotta hang up. Hang on. He caught me.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. So 722, tell us about the history of Missouri scene.
The Missouri scene. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think at this point it's clear AKA needs no introduction, especially if you're here watching us. You know who he is, or you probably wouldn't be here. Now, I got out of Guilty Gear around when Accent Core hit, and have always been a little more of an obscure character, I guess. Is that fair to say?
I guess I'm kind of biased because I don't think so, but I can see how you'd think that. Yeah.
So, I guess in today's fighting game community, most people are probably not aware sort of what scene AKA came from, and by extension myself. Do you remember what year we met?
It was 2003 in December.
Oh my god. 2003 in December.
Yep.
What were you guys up to in 2003? You got like 19-year-old followers and stuff. They were like 8 when we started playing Guilty Gear.
Oh my god. I'm old.
Well, podcast over. Forget this. So, AKA, as you all know, is from St. Louis, Missouri. I am from Columbia, Missouri, which is about 2 hours away. It's a college town. It's where the University of Missouri is. The Missouri Tigers and whatnot. And for whatever reason, we had kind of a resilient arcade scene. I think it's fair to say that by the year 2000, most arcades in the United States were dead or dying. Does that sound right? Maybe it's a little early.
No, you know what? I remember when I joined SRK in like 2001. That was generally the consensus at that time, so I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
The Golfland arcades were starting to close, and people were complaining about the condition of Chinatown Fair, even though I think it lasted another almost 10 years, right?
Yeah, it did.
Well, we had a little arcade called Gunther's Games, and I worked there for a while, and set my friend up with a job managing the place, and he was a fighting gamer. That was how we met. And he got really into Guilty Gear for some reason. He's not really an anime player, so to speak. I think you know the type, especially if you were around in like 2000. He was really into Third Strike, really, really into Super Turbo, and not so much a fan of the chaotic games like Marvel 2. I can't think of any other like contemporary examples off the top of my head. I suppose Vampire Savior.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, Guilty Gear really appealed to him, and I think it was the inclusion of the sort of Street Fighter style characters like Kai, Soul, Axel, the 3 characters he played, by the way.
Right.
So he got really excited about the game and managed to find an XX board for pretty cheap. So he talked the owners of the arcade into buying it. Took like 3 months converting an NBA Jam cabinet to a Guilty Gear XX cabinet.
Oh my god, it was NBA Jam.
That was NBA Jam. It was actually a nice cabinet, so whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever gets the job done. Yeah. And then posted up on SRK that we would be holding a tournament for it, and that they'd be monthly tournaments, actually. So, AKA and his crew showed up to the very first one. Um, I had played a little bit of Guilty Gear and I liked it because I was a nerd and it had flashy supers and like anime characters and stuff. And I pop monstered just kind of for the hell of it, you know? Um, and that was where we first met.
Yep.
AKA won the first tournament. It was actually kind of close. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you stayed in winners the whole time, but he did almost get the bracket reset on
Oh,
you, is what I'm
totally,
saying.
totally. I couldn't play Milia on him.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I had to play
He was
Soul.
just mashing on reversals, yeah.
Yep. Yep. Too
Um,
scared.
So, particularly with 2001 quality internet, 2 hours was kind of a lot of distance, especially for us because we were kids, you know. And we, I remember how we bonded. It's kind of an embarrassing, like nerdy story.
Oh, it's hysterical.
but-
It's great.
We were watching two people play Guilty Gear Casuals, and somebody, somebody died, right?
Hmm.
And like the socially awkward nerd I went like, no, 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 which only 90s kids will understand. And then AKA goes like, ooh, like that. And that was it. Like we were instant friends.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
So we didn't, I don't think we actually communicated at all between that and the second tournament. But I remember thinking like, oh, that guy that won the tournament was real nice actually, because I'd kind of had some negative experiences with like top players,
Ah,
So I was
right.
pleasantly surprised when the person who came and whooped on everybody was like pretty chill about it. So the second time, we ended up exchanging contact information, and I told AKA that watching him and his crew play, they were capable of so much that like I didn't even know was in the game. And were so consistent at things that to a Guilty Gear newbie seemed like totally impossible, like FRCs, air throws, stuff like that. That it had really inspired me, and like I really, really wanted to get good at this game specifically. That was where it started. We held one of these tournaments every month for I'd say about a year and a half. Yes, we exchanged ICQ numbers
Yep. Back in the day.
back in the day.
Yeah.
How long did the Gunthers monthlies run? I think it was only about a year and a half, right?
That's still pretty long. But yeah,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you're right. Yeah, about a year and a
Um,
half.
And it's funny, we were playing Double X. I didn't even know at the time that Reload was out and had been for like several months. And this helps date this story, I guess. I decided to go to Evo that same year. And that was the year that the famous Daigo versus Justin Wong parry happened.
Yep. That's right. I remember
That tournament, I pretty much got clobbered by every single person I played, which that was what really lit the fire, There's a few reasons for that. And the Missouri scene sort of developed two hubs. One was in Columbia, Missouri, around me, and then one was in St. Louis, Missouri, and that was centered around, AKA. And we spent a lot of time in the lab. In Columbia, we played tons and tons of casuals. I don't know if you guys ever did this in St. Louis, but I'm talking like 7 to 9 hours every single day.
Not every single day, but when we did play, we did go like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was almost every single day for us. And each month, we would see tons of improvement relative to the St. Louis group just because we had so much further to go. They were already, pretty competent. And eventually it got to the point where it's like, man, I'm taking games off of this guy.
Yep.
And it happened a little faster than I think at the time I realized, because that's what, a 9-month gap, I'd say, between when I was just kind of slapping buttons and didn't know what was up and when we were sort of scared of each other in tournaments,
Yep.
rather than it going just one way.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. The Missouri scene mostly met up at these monthly tournaments in Columbia, and then we would go to select major tournaments, usually like the two that Chicago ran back then. We'd go to Omaha and, Columbus, Ohio, and places like that.
Right.
That's the origin story of 722 and by extension, AKA,
Hmm.
who you probably know a little better by now. Um, but do you have anything to say about sort of your half of this? Like, obviously, I was playing fighting games casually and, doing stuff like going to training mode in Dreamcast Marvel 2 and inventing these completely ridiculous and practical combos with like Iron Man anti-air assist and Tron, whatever the crouching medium punch assist
Oh,
was,
yeah, 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 yeah.
But then I started to understand fighting games because of you. Like, was there a moment like that for you yourself?
Oh, totally. I first got into games, like fighting games, period, when I saw people in the mall when I was 16 playing Marvel 2, putting quarters up, and I just didn't know what the strange ritual was, And I saw them do it, and I went, oh my god, people do that? This is awesome, right? So then I picked, like, the coolest characters in existence, the best team in Marvel 2, as everyone knows, is Magneto, Akuma, Guile, right? And couldn't do anything. I did learn how to do like the Mag Tempest combos, and that is all I knew how to do. We're talking like I would dash full screen at you and do unsafe stuff like low short, low fierce without an assist call, and if it hit you, I would do the combo, and if it didn't hit, and it never hit there, okay, I would immediately die, right? Some guy who like couldn't block low on wake up to save his life on like CVS 1, and I had really talented, really gifted players in St. Louis that were like from an older generation than me, that played like Marvel superheroes or Street Fighter and Tekken and that stuff, that got me into it. But the big turning point was when I started playing Guilty Gear. An old friend of mine named Tim, he actually ended up buying the Double X board, right, and had like a really sick monitor set up in his house and everything. We would drive like an hour to play him, and this is back in 2002, like shortly after XX came out in arcades, right? And that's where I met Unconkable, and Unconkable is a super old school Tekken player, and his friend Slips, also old school Tekken player. Turns out these two guys were two of the best Tekken tag players in America, and they just happened to also like Guilty Gear. So I found a group of people that were better than me that I could learn off of, and by extension, the people that I played locally with that were just starting to get into the game, I could beat them. So I could beat people that were worse than me and not beat these guys like at all, right? Eventually, though, I ended up, like, Unconkable in particular used to put like 50 game streaks on me, right? And my entire sense of neutral came intuitively from just playing against him. Okay, and I could talk all day about Unconkable because the guy's hysterical, right? But he's always someone I looked up to for that. And yeah, like, so we played for a long time there, and then the very first tournament I ever went to was one of the first tournaments that like Kenji and Jason Kim ran in Columbus, Ohio, right? And like Final Showdown was there, and Elven Shadow was there when he was still like a baby Faust, Ukyo Tachibana was there. All of the old, like, quote-unquote Team Serious people were there, right? Josh the Funk Doc was there. And I got to play all those dudes. That was the first time I went out of town. And then shortly after that in December was when I met 722 and everyone in Columbia, right? And after that, it's as he said, it's like history. We have been doing that ever since. There was kind of a big lull in Guilty Gear, and anime games in general, right around the time when Street Fighter 4 came out. But I don't think the people that played anime games particularly, like, if you were playing, you were still playing no matter what, and you didn't really care what other people were doing. It took about that long for our scene to really notice that, hey, there's, like, we came out of the cave for a little while, into the sunlight and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, that's the story of my earliest days.
That's funny. I remember you talking about that Columbus tournament, and I guess I didn't put two and two together that like that was a really early Team Serious event.
Yes, it was.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
If I had gotten into Guilty Gear like 4 months prior, I would have been there with
Oh
you.
yeah,
You know,
totally.
man.
It's funny because you call it like a really early Team Series event, but I bet if someone were here in the call now to say that, to be like, actually, no, there was an even earlier generation, eons, thousands of years ago, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the earliest knowledge I had of like Team Serious. So
And by extension, competition,
yeah, yeah.
innovation, that sort of thing. That's
Yeah.
what I associate with that whole crew. Well, I know you just went to Northwest Majors, and I wasn't there.
Made
I-
me sad. I wished you
I
were.
know. It made me sad too, believe me. I do want to pick your brain about that for just a little bit.
Okay.
Now, something has just come up. I need to be right back. It should be about 20, 30 seconds, and then we can talk about that, okay?
Sure.
All right. Be right back.
Okay. Yep. Can't wait for him to get back so I can jib jab. Bebop Cola. One thing I do want to point out to you guys is that we're going to go over some of my archived Ask FM questions later. So if you have any questions, particularly anybody in the stream chat, which we're not really doing a whole lot with right now, first episode and all that, we're trying to stick to like Twitter and Ask FM notifications. So if you guys have a question for us, you should hit us up on my Ask FM, which is the same as my Twitter handle. I'm sure you guys know it. It's aka_GGXX. We're going to set one up just for the podcast later, though.
Okay, I am back. What did I miss?
Oh, I just told them how we're going to do Ask FM stuff later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Later this very episode, in fact.
Yep.
Quick warning, my roommate is at the Avengers 2 right now. I have a very sensitive mic, so when he gets home, it might catch a little bit of his chatter. I'll just let him know, hey, the podcast thing is still going, and, apologies in advance for the interruption. Also, you can probably tell I'm recovering from a cold, so if I cough directly into the microphone, not sorry. Cold sucked. You should feel sorry for me.
Hold that. Yep.
Okay, so back to Northwest Majors. I actually didn't get much of a chance to catch the Northwest Majors streams. I didn't catch any of them live. I watched a few of the matches in the archives. So I guess I don't have a very good sense of like the general vibe of the tournament. I've heard nothing but good things from you. You're saying it's one of the better run big anime tournaments you've been to, right?
Yeah. I don't know about, like, say, Capcom side of anything or anything like that, but from what I experienced, granted, I entered one game. Okay, so I'm like, okay, show up at this time. Oh, it's on time. Great. To me, that automatically means, hey, you did a pretty good job, right?
I've literally never been to a tournament where anything ran on time, so that's all. That already sounds like the best tournament in history to me.
Yeah, it's a new world. It's a brave new world. These guys all clearly had lots of experience running this stuff before. I remember one time they were behind because of stream difficulties or something, right? And this guy told me, but actually, we just fixed this one thing, and it's going to save us time by doing this. So not only do they plan ahead really well, they're also very adaptable. So this is a tournament I will go back to, if for nothing but that, right?
And you'd recommend anyone else do the same, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I want to go next year.
Yeah, so
Especially if Ogawa shows up.
I think he will.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I know that based on what Dennis, the event organizer, was telling me, or I don't know if he's event organizer, but he was the MC for Finals Day. I know that.
Okay.
He told me that the numbers just for anime this year, it dwarfed all of the like the attendance from last year. It was higher than that,
Hmm.
right, for every game. So to me, that speaks volumes of the tournament's quality, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, everybody needs to come to Northwest Majors. If you didn't make it out, I feel sad for you. So yeah, yeah.
Well, um, part of the reason I mentioned like I didn't have a good feel for like the vibe of the event.
Hmm.
Um, Something that I really like to see in these big tournaments is character choices, right? Like what's common in certain regions. Like Chicago has that weird thing where 70% of them play Slayer.
Yeah, that's
You know what
true.
I'm talking about,
Oh
right?
yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. Hey
Um,
man, my name's Rick. Oh cool,
I,
Rick. Who do you play? I play Slayer. Yeah.
Slayer, of course, yeah, of course. Now this was like years and years ago because I haven't been to a big tournament since 2006 or something.
Hmm.
But so I think I might know the answer, but let me ask you, like, which character did you see just a ton of at Northwest Majors?
Elfelt.
Of course, right?
Yeah, yeah. Elfelt. Everybody got Elfelt up. It was
That's
all.
that's gross.
It's true though. She was all over the place.
Mhm.
Um, it didn't matter from what area of the country you were from. Like three of the top eight, okay, had three Zatos in it, and it had three Elfelts in it. And the three Zatos, I might mention, there were not very many other Zato players there except for the ones we had. Like,
Right.
Beautiful Dude was there, and Huey was there. I can't really think off the top of my head of like any other notable Zato players. Taya was there, but he's playing Milia now, right?
Oh, okay.
Um, but
But
yeah,
Kyohei wasn't there, for example.
Kyohei wasn't there,
Yeah.
right? So, but Elfelt was everywhere. Okay.
So the Elfelt players you saw, were they people who looked like they were kind of new to Guilty Gear, or seasoned veterans who maybe lost their main character in Xrd and
So I don't know about that last one.
hmm
The new Guilty Gear players that I noticed that were good playing Elfelt were like Kid Viper and Banana Ken. As far as I know,
hmm
this is like their first major entry into Guilty Gear, right?
mm, yeah.
And they don't need introductions.
Oh
But
yeah, of course.
I played against Keep On Rockin', the guy who he's from Canada and he runs the video database on Dustloop, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I use that site all the time.
yeah, it's great, right? And his Elfelt's pretty good. Okay,
Mm,
so like, and he used to play Faust. I feel
mm,
like a lot of these people that are playing Elfelt now are just like they're either jumping on some kind of wagon or they just like the character,
mhm.
right?
I can't blame anyone for either of those things. Full disclosure, that's my character. That's who I play as Elfelt. So,
Uh, okay. Oh, I just got corrected. It was two Elfelts in top eight. It was Banana Ken and Josh.
oh,
But
okay.
but
Oh, Kid Viper was like top 16 or something.
right, right, right. Um, but yeah, it's Elfelt, absolutely.
That's cool. Back in the day, Odin slash tournaments, that definitely would have been like Solar Slayer, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah, Solar Slayer.
That's I actually kind of like to see that, even though like I don't want them to nerf my character super hard, and the more people jump on the bandwagon, it's like, no, they're gonna gutter.
Yeah.
But I always got the impression that the people who like air quotes played Guilty Gear but didn't really,
Hmm.
and played like Soul or Slayer or something like that, were really coming from other fighting games that made those characters look really familiar, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
this guy has a command throw and a big ass dragon punch. Like, that's for me, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I sort of wonder if this is like Blaze Blue players or something who can look at a really complex anime character, so to speak,
Hmm.
and go like, whoa, this is cheap, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of
Um,
them are like that, or are Blaze Blue converts that are coming over to play Guilty Gear,
mhm.
and um, yeah, it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I want to believe too, because Guilty Gear felt like a satellite scene at times.
Hmm.
Um, of course, I'm saying like satellite scene of the Capcom scene, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Please let us into Evo, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right.
So knowing that, people are clearly coming into this from an anime game background and the bandwagon character is about as anime as it gets gameplay wise.
Yeah.
I really hope that's what that means because that's really exciting,
Oh,
to
yeah.
know that not only are there a lot of people that are interested in this game, but like they're going to get good.
Yeah.
It's not just, well, I'll kill time with this between, the games I care about.
Hmm.
So, um, going off of that though, are there characters you expected to see, maybe not even see a ton of, but just some that weren't there?
Where's Milia? I played. I didn't play Taya. I
Hmm.
played one Milia player over the weekend who was pretty good.
Hmm.
One. I don't know if this is because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Hmm.
but there were, aside from Taya, no other Milia players in top 16. This is a character that people are like, the Milia army is real, blah, blah, blah. Right?
But they stayed home.
But they stayed home. None of them came, apparently, except like two of them. Okay? So, I that's mostly what I'm curious about,
Hmm.
is where's Milia. Also, there was not a I saw Potemkin being played once, and it was Lil Majin playing him as his sub character.
Really?
Yeah. I don't blame anyone for not picking Potemkin because that is a mountain. Like, the struggle is real if you pick Potemkin, right? I don't blame anyone for not doing that.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, I'd say it honestly, mostly Milia
Mm.
is a thing. Like, there is no, at this point, I am inclined to say there is no Milia army. That is smoke and mirrors. There is an Elfelt army, right?
Right.
No Faust in top 8 either, right? But then
Hmm.
again, um,
Boy,
I did,
Faust has a real rough time with Elfelt. If those were everywhere, I kind of understand why.
yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, if the character was difficult to use, like Ramlethal, there was, Paul was there, and Pain was there,
Hmm.
right? So, and I know I saw another Ramlethal player who's good
Hmm.
that was there, but I mean, I'm bad with my memory's not very good about that kind of stuff. So,
Sure, yeah.
but yeah, other say top tier characters you expect to see were there, but Milia was easily the one that was like Milia and Faust, but more
Hmm.
Milia than anybody. It was like not really present over the weekend.
Yeah. To be frank, I feel like Milia's always been a little underrepresented in the U.S. Guilty Gear scene.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the same in Japan, but it always surprised me. Probably because I have Emilia to play against, so it's like, man, this character is so good. Like, why aren't people getting on this?
Right.
Um, I kind of hope that changes. Especially if any of the big Milias start to come in from Japan, you're gonna wish you had one to practice against because holy crap,
Yeah.
it's intense.
Yeah. It really is.
She was my first pick for business character in this game before I discovered Elfelt, and I have to say she's sort of boring in Xrd. I hate to say it like that, but I, do you feel like it's true?
I I mean, I used to play Milia for years, and that's
Yeah.
same thing. Same thing. It was I lost. I feel like I lost three really meaningful options from Plus R into Exerd with her.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's just, oh, you do the same thing that I've been doing the entire time. So it didn't feel like I was actually learning anything new, just like a new engine, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I picked up Zato. A part of it is because he was much deeper in this game than Milia is, and
Hmm.
I love his old Shadow set, right?
Hmm.
So it was like, to me, it was like a return to glory, right?
Right.
So I wanted to maximize the amount of fun I had with Zato. But no, I agree with you. Milia's not, it's not very boring, not very interesting. If you think that kind of style is great and then fun, go ham. Please, please start leading your Milia army, your soldiers, your troops into events so you can body people.
Yes.
Because America is going to need that kind of exposure.
Hmm.
You know.
And I kind of hope somebody proves me wrong. I've never actually seen this guy play any game, but I do have high hopes for that Lord Knight guy because I hear he's playing Milia,
Oh
and I
yeah.
want to see like, did I just miss something? Because I look at Japanese Milias, and sure, it looks boring, but like watching videos is nothing like playing against it, or even just watching it being played in real time.
Right. I agree.
And so I have high hopes, but I have to say I couldn't resist the siren song of the cheap ass grenade in 2S. So that person won't be me.
Right.
Is sort of what I'm saying.
Right. I got you.
You know, well, we're talking about like Milia being sort of a blind spot for the American, if I can call it this meta game, right? That leads into the next question I wanted to ask, which is, and maybe you don't have a good answer for this, that's fine. But based on what you saw at, help me out here, Northwest Majors, that's what it was called, right?
Right. Northwest Majors.
Are there any insights you gained about the American metagame at this point? Like anything you think people are neglecting, anything that maybe surprised you because people were never good at it back in old Guilty Gear, anything like that?
It's okay. So I'm just going to use this as a direct comparison. Like I'm going to compare this event to Frosty Faustings. Okay? Because those are the last two tournaments I've been to, and I understand it represents different regions. But the big takeaway is that as of Frosty Faustings, and I'm sure this is the case across America in a lot of places, nobody's baiting dead angles.
Man.
It is a big problem. If you bait a dead angle on me, I automatically say, you're pretty good. Automatically. Like, just because hardly anyone else does it. It's so important, especially if you have to, especially when you're baiting, like, bad dead angles like Zato's, right? I remember at Frosty Faustings, there were a lot of people that I'm like, well, I just got put in this situation. That sucks. It shouldn't have happened. You know, whatever. I'm just going to dead angle here when I think he does this one thing. Oh, it counter hit. Well, you just got counter hit by Zato's dead angle. That is not my problem.
It's a sad story.
That's a sad story. That's a quick way to Loserville, right? So, but at Northwest Majors, I noticed a lot of people were baiting dead angles. And the thing is, a lot of that boils down to, like, I think that the level of competition at Northwest Majors was just higher in general. Because of that, you saw that more people were more familiar with little nuances about the character's offense, right? So, and as a result, be like, I as a Leo player, know when this person wants to dead angle, right? And I will, like, counter into D. You know, I'll like chain into his back turn D, or I'll just straight up like bait it and punish with a huge Rekikin combo, right? It's like I give this guy credit for knowing how my character's offense works to the point where I have to bait his dead angle in specific places, right? To me, that speaks that, oh, the level of competition here is higher, right? If you don't know what to do against a certain character, and you're just focused on, and you're playing against someone good, or someone that takes a lot of focus to play against, and you end up not baiting their dead angle because you're too focused on executing your stuff optimally, you might end up getting robbed in situations that you really shouldn't have. Like, you outplayed them in neutral, you got in control to do this one thing.
You got your big knockdown with a 1,000,000 meter, that sort of situation.
Yeah, exactly. You're set to go, you're ready to go, and then this person just goes, help! And then they just dead angle. And if you're fighting Milia or Zato, it's like, that might be game over right there, man, because you just get knocked down and you die. That's the biggest takeaway, I think, is that the state of America as a whole, dead angles are the number one thing people need to watch out for. And I say this because I hit way too many people with them in situations I should not.
Situations where I bet if I was watching, I'd be like, watch, he's going to dead angle, and then boom.
Ping!
I have the benefit of having played against you a bunch, but...
Right. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's not what I was expecting to hear, but it's good, actually.
Oh, okay.
You brought up Leo. If there are any Leo players listening, I'd just like to let you know I am not in the slightest bit free to your back turn D, and I think very hard about my dead angles, so don't even try to bait them, because that won't work either. I promise you. Just a warning.
Good job. Nice one.
Yeah. Well, I understand you got to meet a player you admire very much. Maybe you guys have heard of him. His name is Ogawa. You met in the tournament, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
What happened there?
I beat him a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
I watched that later, and if I were him, I would not be proud of that.
He'd be like, ah, nuts.
Yep, yep. Now this guy thinks he's good. Oh my god. Yeah. Um, no, I mean, in all seriousness, though, yeah, I played Ogawa. I met him later. It's funny because we almost always seem to be in the same place at the same time. And I swear I joked about stalking this dude, but I didn't. It just happened. Right?
Uh-huh.
Um, anyway, I got to talk to him at the after party for the event, which surprisingly few people went to. Right? But the Japanese were there.
Uh-huh.
All three of them. I'm pretty sure Koji Kog went as well. But no, I talked to Ogawa's interpreter, and he managed to tell me some stuff about the game. And this is a situation where I really wish I knew Japanese, and not just
If only I'd been there.
like not just if only you had been there. And not just like knew it a little bit like conversationally, but like actually like knew it, like, you know, knew it. So any type of shorthand he would use, I'd be able to understand, right?
Right.
But you know, he talked about like Zato's high-low and when you should, things like when you should unsummon Eddie versus not, like when you should actually like let him run out. He talked about some interaction between instant air dashing and summoning, which to me sort of makes sense, but the interpreter wasn't able to, you know, grasp everything. He was an excellent interpreter, but he even told me, he said it was kind of hard to understand and explain. And he did mention one thing. Ogawa did say that even he has doubts about his own abilities sometimes. And
we had a conversation about that, sort of, right?
Yeah. I think it's pretty telling, you know, that even gods think that they're terrible. It's probably because they're so self-critical, you know.
And think about everything they know about the game that we don't.
Yeah.
All those mistakes that only they see.
Yep.
What a terrifying world that must be to live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this, I think, because I felt like I'd sort of hit a wall. Of course, it lasted for like 2 hours, but whatever. And insecurity is really something you have to fight as a fighting gamer. I wonder if it ever goes away, frankly.
I'm sure it doesn't. As a competitor, period,
Yeah.
I don't think it ever does.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that just goes to show, if you're one of those players that really struggles with self-esteem, evidently the unbeatable, like, deity of Guilty Gear feels the same way. So, you know, ease off a little bit. It's okay to make a mistake once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of players with flagging self-esteem or motivation or like skill level, let's talk a little bit about like what the aim of this podcast is, right? Particularly future episodes, because this is sort of, we're just introducing ourselves, BSing. Mostly we're doing this because I wanted to, because I didn't have anything to do tonight. My work is canceled until tomorrow, so.
Right.
But do you want to go over this, or should I?
Well, I kind of briefly mentioned this on Twitter, but I mean, by all means, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited for Guilty Gear Xrd. I was out of Guilty Gear. Accent Core, I just decided wasn't my kind of game. I didn't enjoy how my main character played, and I couldn't find a replacement. So, you know, I was like, oh, I don't have to do the fighting game thing anymore. So I quit. And then Xrd came out, and I got really excited again. Not just about playing the games, but also about the scene. And I have to say I've been really pleased with like the turnout numbers I've been seeing at tournaments and stuff like that. And I really want it to take off, you know?
Right.
I know what it's like to either be new to fighting games altogether or sort of be coming in from something else and not know where to start, because it's sort of a dense game. Information, by which I mean like tactics, even basic combos and things like that, will change as the metagame itself develops, right? People discover new things, and it's like, oh, nobody does X, Y, and Z mix up anymore. Um, so forums can be kind of a mess, and it can leave you feeling a little lost as to how to improve. You know, particularly new players and like maybe intermediate players. That's really who we're trying to help. Um, I think I'm the one who approached Aaron with this idea because he got a lot of Ask.fms that I was really happy to see. You know, they said a lot about the player's capacity for self-analysis and open-mindedness. Um, and maybe that's something that was lacking when Guilty Gear was a game that was still trying to prove itself in a world of ST and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and stuff. Um, I don't see quite as many resources for newer players, so what we're hoping to do is get our listeners and viewers to come to us with questions. That can be, you know, questions on Ask.fm about character specifics, like things they're having trouble with, or big picture questions like, you know, am I talented enough? How flexible are the characters in this game? Do I need to be X copying or inventing my own stuff? It can also be things like match videos. We can analyze those for you. If you've seen these Counter-Strike videos, I don't play the game, but my roommate loves it. He watches this YouTube channel called The War Owl, and he does these videos that I just find completely fascinating. Like, I can lose 3 or 4 hours watching these things, even though I have no idea what it is I'm looking at. Like, I've never played Counter-Strike. I'm never going to. But if you feel you're at maybe not a lower skill level, but one with which you're not satisfied, or you walk away from a match that you happen to have recorded, having lost it, but not knowing why, send that to us, because we'll probably be able to see something that you missed or just didn't consider. With that out of the way, we actually do have 2 Ask.fm questions that you felt were insightful enough that they'd be productive to answer, like, on the air, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we get into those, I guess I want to say part of the reason that we talked about the history of the Missouri scene and how it was kind of fragmented and we really worked to get to where we did is because I think a lot of these players who just don't know which way to go are in these sorts of scenes. They're fragmented, they're small. Maybe it's like there's 4 players and 2 of them play Kai. So like,
right,
that's you're robbing everybody of one matchup because, you know, one person just doesn't want to switch, you know, which is fine. I mean, you have to play who you're comfortable with. But you can get good at the game coming from that kind of background.
Right.
That's pretty much what we did. And those are the people we really want to talk to. Now, anyone else, of course, feel free to listen, feel free to watch. I'm sure you can find things that we didn't.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the objective. So, again, with that out of the way, did you want to read the first of those Ask.fms, and then we can dig into it?
Yeah, sure. I saw this get posted to a lot of other players' Ask FMs, but this really stuck out to me. How much of Guilty Gear Neutral boils down to restricting and punishing movement, either with getting them to block or just hitting them during a dash, and thus player versus player, compared to character versus character normals and specials, and knowing the matchup that way? What do you have to think? What do you have to say about that?
Well, I like it. I do think there's a bit of a false dichotomy at play in this question.
Yeah.
We talked about this ahead of time a little bit so that we weren't stumbling over our words and everything on stream. But these are both skills that are really important. You need to know your character. You need to know the other character's options. If you don't understand that, you can't really access that level of player versus player. Maybe really obvious big picture stuff like, oh, I knocked this guy down and he always reversals the first time you knock him down with meter. But that's so small, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe Guilty Gear doesn't work this way anymore. The scene I'm familiar with is really the slash reload, and even like very early accent core scene. But I've seen a lot of people start from nothing and get to really pretty high level. And I've noticed some patterns in how people tend to learn characters, particularly those with certain play styles. So, like, I want to use Faust as an example because Bridget's no longer in the game, but of course, he feels like a Street Fighter character, right? Because what he really wants to do is control space. He is zoning you to death,
Yeah.
and if he gets a knockdown, it's like, well, I might as well run in and do that 2K thing, but that's just a bonus. Um, People tend to watch videos really closely for sequences of moves that are really cheap and look repeatable.
Yeah.
So this is just an example. I honestly have no idea if a good Faust would like do this specific string, right? But something like just far S, cancel it into item throw, and then jump FTCH and H on the way down, and then maybe dash to reset the pushback if they had to block it or get hit.
Right.
And then you just keep going. Then from there, maybe you have a little flow chart between like, I might do S again, I might jump back and like, I don't know, throw the item bag. It doesn't seem, or the bomb bag. It doesn't seem like that's as big as central a tactic anymore. But I've watched like 3 Faust videos in this game, so forgive me if I'm totally off base.
It's still there. You still
It's
see
still
people
there.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go then. Um, that that style of play, which is very common, of learning autopilot strings, breaking them down into little chunks, and sort of shuffling it around in response to the distance between your character and the other character, and just things like, oh, I know he can't contest my far S at this range, right? If you can't break people out of that, then you're not going to win. In other words, that is that player versus player matchup thing.
Right.
It's not simply the really obvious layers of, I hate to use this word, but Yomi, like, oh, he's going to duck here.
Right.
How do I know? I don't. I just know. And you cannot start on that without that player versus player knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, Faust can't beat this move after S. After I block Pogo, I'm in this situation. So, in answer to your question, study that character versus character aspect as much as possible so that you're not even thinking about it while you're playing. And while you're playing, you're practicing that player versus player interaction. How do I break this guy out of his safe zone? His or her, I suppose. And how do I get my game plan going?
Yeah.
That's really what you want to do. How do you feel about this one?
So, like you said before, there's kind of a false dichotomy here, right? It's not that it's like, okay, Nthus player versus player compared to, as if saying these two things are completely separate. It's not. It can't be, right?
Right.
You only get access to true player versus player interaction. Like, okay, I interact with you as a player with my character's tools. Okay? If two people try to bust in and do player versus player interaction without actually understanding each character's tools, you are actually handicapping yourself. And I feel like a lot of people, this boils down to like what we talked about earlier with like American meta, is if you don't understand what every character can do, or at least the character you're playing against can do, right? In so many situations and you end up trying to read what the other person's doing, if that person does understand the character matchup, they don't honestly even have to think to beat you. And I feel like it's a difference between, say, Japanese play and American play. Because Japan has the experience to back that up. They know what all the characters can do. They've had their ass handed to them by random people in an arcade who's like, oh, wow, that was really cheap. But they've done it for every single character. Okay?
Several times over.
Several times over, exactly. Right? So before you can even get to player versus player, you have to do character versus character. And character versus character exists even when you're doing player versus player. It's just those are the tools you have to interact with. If you look at a character as just a tool set, right? Then you're much better off thinking in those terms. Likewise, I mean, not to nitpick or anything, but I've heard people compare talk about Guilty Gears, like they talk about in every game, like set play characters
Hmm.
as, first of all, finger quotes, set play characters like Relius and Zato and
Right.
Valkenhayn and Milia,
Hmm.
you know, and Lychee and all these other characters, right? They think,
Hmm.
I don't think those characters are fair or boring because they eliminate the player versus player aspect of the game. And I want to point,
Excuse me.
yes, I want to point out how horribly incorrect that is. Okay, because
Hmm.
they have to hit you first,
Right.
straight up. You could say it dumbs the game down or makes it boring for you, or you don't like set play because of reasons. And I'm like, okay, you want a game that's more neutral heavy and all about footsie, you know, for
Hmm.
every single decision. I would suggest you go play a footsie style game and not a game where it's conditionally one player's turn.
Right.
To back that up, when you completely dismiss things like set play or someone's offense as autopilot and brain dead, and it removes all these aspects about the game,
Hmm.
that's not actually true. Okay,
Right.
because now you have a chance to actually break imperfect set play. And I want to ask, how many people have you played against? Can anybody say that has perfect set play 100% of the time?
Oh God, no.
Yeah,
Nobody.
yeah. You have to be like Captain Kirk in the Kurabashi Maru or whatever the hell that like thing was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where he's in an unwinnable situation and he finds a way to win. That's the kind of mentality you have to have, right? Even if
Mhm.
you're in block stun and doing all this stuff, you still have the ability to make decisions. Okay?
Mhm.
If I know it kind of sounds like I'm putting people with that opinion on blast. I am not. Okay? I'm not.
Mhm.
If you honestly don't even want to learn that type of thing and you honestly have more fun just doing footsie and that kind of thing, then I do not think any game with any type of set play honestly is for you. We're talking like you might find Kai's YRC big fireball after a sweep too cheap. And,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, this is also where I would start recommending things like, hey, how would you like to shut down that type of play? Maybe you should play a character that has insanely good neutral.
Right.
I would play Kai because his buttons beat everything.
Right. Mhm.
That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's really another false dichotomy at play here, right?
Mm.
Because this set play is the reward you get for a good decision you made in neutral.
Yeah, it is.
And I think people get that, right? It's just they're frustrated that that good decision in neutral is like, oh, you hit sweep once, you know?
Right.
On the other hand, if you knew that that was how that person could end the game and you weren't doing everything in your power to take that sweep away, and when you can't do that to get the hell out of the way of it, that's still on you.
It is. Yeah.
That sort of play still exists in like Street Fighter and those sorts of games too.
Yeah. This is why people hate Yoon's EX Dash Punch because it's +1.
Yes.
Right? Like, oh, it's +1 on block. I'm like, why did you block it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the next response. You
Right.
know? I know that's almost hyperbole here, but still,
Yeah.
you get the
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We did have another question.
Yes.
Yeah. And that question is, what do you think it will take for America to close the skill gap with Japan?
Do you want me to field this one?
I mean, go ahead.
So, I've actually been to Japan. I've been twice. It was for a combined time of like 10 or 11 months, something like that.
Mhm.
I can't say I spent all of that time in arcades, but I did get to go to all the big deal ones, you know, like the Mikado and Takadanobaba, and I got to go to Acho. There's a few others that they're escaping me at the moment, but, you know, I have this story of I was getting really salty playing against some Slayer at Accent Core, and I remembered what the guy looked like because it was really unique, right? He had this sort of like undercut hairstyle and like 10 earrings on one ear and like piercings all over, which you don't see too much of that even in like the arcade scenes. And I was like, man, why can't I beat this guy? Like, he's inside my head. I hate this game, you know,
Hmm.
because I got salty about Axton Core, and then later I find out it was fucking Dogura I was talking about. It's like, well, that makes sense. I guess, you know, he deserves a win it too
You're like,
against
yeah, I guess he's
me.
alright. He's
Yeah.
alright, you know.
Um, I, you know, I've also been all over the United States, and the first thought that I had when I got to Acho and I played against those players is maybe kind of unexpected for people who haven't been there, especially.
Hmm.
I was like, man, this is exactly like playing in Omaha, Nebraska. For those not familiar, Omaha, Nebraska is another big hub of the Midwest scene. At least I know for sure they were back in, you know, Reload and Slash, right?
Hmm.
And they were all known for hyper aggression, hard reads, really sick execution, you know.
Yep.
So even their weak players were terrifying, right? Like they
Yep.
get started and you'd get this gnawing feeling in your gut, like I just lost. Even if it's
Hmm.
like Axel and he doesn't have any meter, it's like, oh no, here he comes.
Yeah.
Um, and it says something, I think, about the way that people are learning anime games in the United States. Again, I think this actually comes from just having scenes with small competition, which is the obvious answer to this, right?
Hmm.
Japanese players play all the time. Hase already has like 9,000 games of just 1.1 played. And, you know, we have to work that much harder. That is true. But you also have to work smarter.
Yeah.
And um, Japanese play, especially in casuals, is nothing like what you see in videos. For one thing, there's just something different about watching it at 60 frames a second in person.
Hmm.
Everyone's movement looks so much faster, and you have no idea until you've done it. Like
That
they're picking Shadow Soul compared to your own normal soul.
Yeah, that's how I felt playing Ogawa, and just watching
Hmm.
him play, I go, "Oh, I totally get it now. I totally get it now." It's like having a third eye opened on your forehead. You know, like this is 60 frames per second in real time, Ogawa. I'm like, wow,
uh,
how is his flying so fast? He
right.
avoids everything. This is stupid,
And
right?
it's often their use of those basic options, like, you know, Eddie's flight, or Zato, sorry,
Yeah,
Exerd. Um, that's what catches you off guard. You're ready to see like sick combos and everything, but you know this is the experience that a lot of people had with Rue when he first came down for whichever Evo that was, the last Evo I ever went to.
2006, I
Thank
believe.
you.
Yeah,
Yes, 2006, and nobody could make him block. Like
yeah,
nobody could start a mix up on him because he was so good at avoiding these
everything.
yeah, these bad situations because he had so much knowledge of just where characters' bubbles were,
Hmm.
when to backdash, when to stay put. And he's playing like the slipperiest character in the game, too.
Right.
Um, and when you. I'm getting a little off track, but something that I was not prepared to face so very much of in Japanese arcades was, I think new players would call it disrespect. I would say they were going through an introductory phase anytime they were playing against a player that they didn't know.
Hmm.
Obviously, no one knows who I am because I'm some Bridget player from Missouri, right? Um, and they'll, especially the first round, they'll just do whatever just to see what you know. We're talking like Potemkins will just hold up forward the entire game to see which distances you understand not to contest, which ones you know how to anti-air. And if you can't get past that, they gain so much insight into your overall skill level.
Yep.
I don't see American players doing that to each other. The ones who I do see are from very competitive scenes with a very wide pool of players.
Hmm.
Chicago was like this, but you know, also again Omaha, Nebraska,
Hmm.
um, and
East Coast, I think, is like that as well.
that doesn't surprise me to hear.
Yeah.
But I think the two things are you need to play open minded. You know,
Hmm.
if IADing in is just like the most blatant, obvious thing in the world, and you're like, I know I can't get away with this, and you're playing against somebody you've never seen before, um, I'd do it. You know, I would force them to prove that they even deserve to get past, you know, you just playing out of your book.
Yeah.
Um, and learn to do that. And then from those results, uh, you have more educated guesses about how to approach the more obvious mix-up elements like high-low.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, obviously, if somebody's never played Guilty Gear before and you're like playing Testament against them, bad example, I guess, because he isn't in the current game, and you do like Back Beast FRC and he blocks it,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be a fool to do anything but 6P, right?
Yeah, totally.
There's no way this person is going to be able to like see that super quick counterintuitive animation,
Mm-hmm.
and you're actually doing them a disservice by not abusing it and really hammering in like this is the next step.
Yeah.
This is what you need to learn.
Yep.
And because we don't do that to each other, we don't get really cutthroat and also very analytical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even really strong American players will have surprising holes in their either their defense or just like their tactical knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that I think hold the whole scene back.
Yeah.
There's a knowledge disparity, in other words. There are American players who play Potemkin and don't know the distances where this cheap zoning character is completely helpless against like a jump. You know,
Yeah.
that knowledge is much more common in Japan, in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
We need to communicate these things, which I understand. This is a much more communicative scene than like the 2005 anime game scene. Thank God for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is the next step. Like without developing that knowledge base, learning all of these entry angles that don't work, and without like learning it organically, rather than like noticing in a video like, oh, no one instant air dashes here, I guess I won't, is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, so that kind of ties into that, but you talked about knowledge base, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only way we can build upon that knowledge base is if we took what we currently have in terms of our American top players at anime
Mm-hmm.
and multiply that by like a factor of like 10 or more. Not even kidding.
Yeah.
Our best is maybe like pretty good average level in Japan, right? And it's because that's not because of lack of potential or anything like that or lack of talent.
Right.
It's lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? These games are so intricate and you can only get by so much on fundamentals because there's just so much cheap stuff going on, right? So if you don't have exposure to everything you need to know, then you're just, like you said, you're going to get rocked by some dude who just like picks page 4 out of his book and just says, yeah, I'm just going to kill this guy with this, right? Because he doesn't know what he's doing. And because we don't have enough players at that frequency, and with the ability to play a ton of characters at that level with that type of frequency, just being able to catch up at to catch up to them is going to be difficult. This is always why. This is why people say that Japan always has the advantage when a game first comes out. Okay, because they can get like a month after a game comes out is like a year in terms of American placing, like in terms of our knowledge base, right? And only the most dedicated people even learn half as much as what the Japanese scene as a whole is capable of learning with that type of environment on their own, right? Like Lab Monsters, right? Like Bananakin is insanely talented, and a lot of that, I think, because he understands how to use training mode that well. So, and it turns out
that is a really good point. You can get a lot of insight into a player's weaknesses by watching them use training mode, and like watching what they're not thinking of.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go on, because I know you had more to say about this, you brought up this sort of like human years, dog years comparison, where like 1 month in Japan in their arcade scene is like a year in our fighting game scene for metagame development.
Right, exactly.
Do you think that the speed or the discrepancy in how much you get out of a given like duration of playtime be that like 1 month, 2 months? Do you think that ever changes? Or is it just constant? Like the Japanese scene is always improving at 10 times the rate of the American scene.
Oh, sure, it changes because
Hmm.
as Japan, and here's the thing, as Japan discovers a lot of this stuff, we end up copying it,
Hmm.
right? So you could say we get shortcuts. We stand on their shoulders a little bit, right? So we're always able to keep up a little bit in terms of like knowledge, but only like kind of at the bare minimum,
Right.
right? So you end up here's what think ends up happening. You've got top players in America who understand how to use the information that they're given
Hmm.
and are good players at the same time, right?
Right.
And they apply that and they do well in tournaments, and that's how they're like considered like top players, right?
Hmm.
Then you could say one of those people they go to Japan and it's like I got rocked by this dude I've never heard of because I don't understand the game at the level this guy does because he's
Right.
got thousands of games under his belt against all these different players. You mentioned how you have to have a process when you're playing against strangers.
Right.
Okay? If you want to keep winning, if we don't have that type of thing because our scene is insular, right?
Hmm.
It's almost inbred. You can tell when you go around. This is why majors are so great. You play tons of people from different regions because it's the only time you get to emulate that type of arcade experience that Japan has,
Right.
right? You could say online, and it's true. That will help you, but it has its limits because nothing
Right.
is going to replicate that type of like. I mean, what do you play online for, if not just for fun? If you want to learn the absolute most about a game, it's built for offline play, in person, and yeah, online play is only going to take you so far. It's going to give you building blocks, a foundation to learn these types of things, but it's not going to carry you all the way, right?
Hmm.
This might be why a lot of online players are actually so good because they understand intuitively that you have to have a process when you're playing new people.
Right.
You want to keep winning, you
Hmm.
gotta you gotta have a process. Oh, this guy doesn't know about this. I'm gonna abuse this, and suddenly you know exactly like this guy's like third dawn, time to kill him, right? That
Uh-huh.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that it. I don't think that it necessarily stays the same,
Hmm.
especially as more eventually stuff about the game stops being discovered.
Right.
Eventually,
The game
okay,
gets maxed
yeah.
out.
Or if it doesn't get maxed out, it slows down to an absolute crawl.
Hmm.
And this is why American players at really old games end up rivaling some of Japan's best because it
Hmm.
gives top American players the time they need. And I have to add this in a dedicated scene with enough talented players to play different matchups to get the
Hmm.
knowledge they need, can compete with those top Japanese players. Okay?
Yeah.
I feel like the reason why we have a lot of people that are competitive in Street Fighter 4, or I don't know if this is the case anymore. Roast me alive if it's not true. I don't care. But but just the general idea that it was at one point that's the case
Right.
doesn't totally have to deal with the nature of the game itself. A lot of people
Hmm.
will blame that on that, right? Of course.
Hmm.
But it's how many people are playing it.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And then
Hmm.
then it ties back to like, how anime is kind of a satellite community to Capcom and a lot of these other games,
Hmm.
right? This is why I think it's actually important to watch, say, I know this is going to come out of nowhere, like the Mortal Kombat X community.
Yeah, that is out of nowhere. What do you mean by that?
The amount of money that's being thrown at this game is nuts.
Mm.
Okay? Meaning, all these casual people, casual players that just like Mortal Kombat for whatever, if you're throwing that much seed out there, okay, you're gonna get some trees. You're gonna get new players. This is where your new talent comes from,
Hmm.
right? That's just how it works. So I think it will be interesting to see how much new blood comes out of Mortal Kombat X and how competitive that game will end up being in the future, right? Mortal Kombat
Hmm.
9 was a fairly good share of new blood. There was also a lot of old blood that was very dominant, right?
Hmm.
X is not the same game as 9, so you're gonna and they're throwing even more money out there at it.
Right.
Okay, I think Microsoft's throwing like $50,000 or something like that at the game. No, no? That's Killer Instinct.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm sorry, but Ed Boon is doing something similar for Mortal Kombat X. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of this.
yeah. because they want this game to rival Street Fighter, and the only reason they want that is because Street Fighter has the number of players like Capcom community, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. Short answer on my end is we need more sick players that play in a higher frequency in order to get that.
Yeah.
Okay? At the absolute top level, it's going to be this player's tendencies versus this player's tendencies, and that's where like your videos, like video studying player habits and watching videos, stuff like that, come into effect.
Right.
But you're not actually going to gain any like long-term, deeper, widespread understanding of the game you're playing. You're not going to get a bigger playbook, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Just by studying one single player and what they're doing in a limited, vacuum. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
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 I think that's really all I had to say about it.
Well, like there's something encouraging about this too, because at first blush, it really makes it feel like an uphill battle, right? Because we won't have the same numbers that the Japanese scene has, I think. I just don't foresee that happening for these kinds of games, or really any fighting games, But, like you said, that discrepancy in how much you can get out of like a month of practice goes away over time.
Yeah.
So all it means is like, if you want to get good, I'm sure you can. Just keep trying.
Yeah.
Like, keep at it. Don't, I mean, like, I won't get into it now, but I've seen so many people ascend from like scrub levels, right? Like, and they'll be here for like years and years. You show up in tournaments and they're in your pool and you're like, thank God. And then like 2 months later, you're like, oh God, that guy's in my pool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it might look bleak, frankly, for a while, but we can do it.
Yeah.
I honestly think so.
Oh, absolutely. I think we can. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, we've been going over for a little bit. It looks like. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That is all we had planned for tonight, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope you guys had fun with it.
Yeah. I really thought this was fun. This is a
Yeah.
great time.
Oh, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I'd like to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do this once a week or once every other week.
Yeah. I think
Maybe we should do it Wednesdays around 9:30.
Wednesdays around 9:30. Wow.
What a
Okay.
good idea.
That's a great idea. It's
Who came
weird.
up with that?
Oh, it's weird. I was thinking maybe the same thing. That's strange, isn't it? Wow. Okay. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been AKA and
722.
On the Backyard, episode 1. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.